Do you believe life can change in just one room, in just one humiliating moment, only to turn into something greater than you ever imagined? Wait until you hear the shocking twist at the end of this story. And hey, before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner, because we share powerful stories like this every single day that might just inspire your own journey. Amara was an ordinary woman, or at least, that's how the world saw her. She lived in a small rented apartment, rode the bus to most places, and wore clothes that had been carefully mended more than once. But behind her plain appearance, she carried something most people fail to see: resilience. Life had given her nothing on a silver platter. She had grown up in a family that struggled to put food on the table, worked 3 jobs during college, and even after graduating, she often found herself fighting against the prejudice of people who thought she didn't fit the part. Now she stood outside the tall, glassy skyscraper of Anderson & Company, a leading global firm known for its wealth, power, and, unfortunately, its ruthless corporate culture. She clutched her modest handbag tightly, smoothing the wrinkles of her inexpensive dress. Today was supposed to be a chance. A job interview. She had been shortlisted for a managerial position, and although her resume was stronger than most, top grades, diverse experience, and leadership in multiple projects, she was still nervous. She knew she didn't look like the other candidates who would walk in with designer suits, polished accents, and family connections. As she entered the building, the receptionist's eyes flicked up and down, pausing at her scuffed shoes. "Interview candidates on the 14th floor," she said curtly, without a smile. Amara whispered a thank you and walked to the elevator, trying to keep her composure. When the elevator doors opened, she was met with a wide room filled with intimidatingly confident people. Men in expensive watches laughed among themselves, women with sharp heels clicked across the floor, their blazers perfectly fitted. And then there was her, a simple woman who didn't belong. At least, that's how they made her feel. "Excuse me, miss," one of the other candidates sneered, "are you sure you're in the right place? The housekeeping interviews must be downstairs." Laughter erupted around her. Amara felt her face flush with embarrassment, but she kept her back straight. "Yes," she said firmly, "I'm here for the managerial interview." But the whispers didn't stop. Another woman with glossy hair chuckled, "Poor thing, she probably thinks she can run a team dressed like that." More laughter followed. Amara clenched her fists inside her bag. Every word felt like a slap, but she swallowed her pride. She had faced humiliation before. She wasn't going to let it break her. Finally, the candidates were called into a large conference hall where 3 directors sat behind a long desk. The interview began. Each candidate was asked to present their vision for solving a critical business crisis, a challenge intentionally designed to test leadership, creativity, and resilience. When it was Amara's turn, she walked to the front. She could still hear faint chuckles behind her. She took a deep breath. Her voice, steady at first, began to grow stronger. "I come from a background where failure wasn't an option. I have seen businesses collapse not because they lacked money, but because they lacked empathy and vision. A true leader," she paused, "must understand not only numbers but people. If this company wants to thrive, it must build both profit and purpose." As she laid out her strategy, detailed, practical, and bold, the directors stopped writing and started listening. One of them even leaned forward, impressed. Amara's words carried not just theory but lived experience. She spoke of systems that could cut waste by 40%, leadership programs to retain talent, and social initiatives that would strengthen the company's image globally. When she finished, the room was silent. For a brief moment, Amara thought she had failed. But then one of the directors nodded slowly, as though deeply moved. Yet before anyone could comment, a loud laugh came from one of the candidates seated at the back. "This is hilarious," he scoffed. "Listening to her talk about vision is like listening to a beggar teaching investment strategies." The room erupted in murmurs. Amara froze. Her heart pounded. Humiliation washed over her, threatening to drown all her courage. She turned toward the directors, waiting for their dismissal. Instead, something unexpected happened. The large double doors at the back of the hall opened, and in walked a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit. His presence silenced the room instantly. It was none other than Mr. Anderson, the elusive billionaire CEO himself. Every candidate straightened in their chairs. Directors rose respectfully. But Mr. Anderson's eyes didn't sweep the room in search of his executives. They went directly to Amara. He walked forward, slowly, until he stood right in front of her. And then, before the gasping eyes of every candidate and director, he bowed. "Chairwoman," he said softly but firmly. "Forgive me for arriving late." The room exploded with shock. Faces drained of color. The same people who had laughed at her now sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Amara herself was speechless, her breath caught in her throat. "Chairwoman." What was going on? The humiliation she had endured only moments before turned into the most powerful silence she had ever felt. Something was about to unfold that no one in that hall would ever forget. The stunned silence hung in the air like a heavy curtain. The very people who mocked Amara now stared at her with wide eyes, waiting for an explanation. Amara's mind spun in disbelief. Chairwoman. She had walked into this building as a candidate for a middle management role. How on earth could the billionaire CEO call her that? Mr. Anderson straightened, his sharp eyes scanning the room. "You're all wondering why I called her chairwoman," he said, his voice commanding the space. "Allow me to explain. 3 months ago, our board of directors made a unanimous decision: Anderson and Company needs a new kind of leadership. We've built wealth, but we've lost touch with humanity. We wanted someone who understood struggle, who understood resilience, and who carried both intelligence and humility. We didn't want another polished puppet. We wanted vision. And after reviewing hundreds of profiles, do you know whose name rose above the rest?" He turned to Amara. "Hers." Gasps filled the room. Some of the candidates shook their heads in disbelief. The very director who had leaned forward during her presentation now stood and clapped once, slowly, as if realizing the truth. Amara felt her knees weaken. She had applied for a managerial role, completely unaware that her portfolio had caught the board's attention on a much higher level. They hadn't been looking for a manager. They had been looking for a chairwoman. Tears welled in her eyes as she recalled the years of struggle, the nights she studied under dim lights after long shifts, the rejection letters, the mocking voices that told her she'd never make it. And now, in this single moment, the tables had turned. But Mr. Anderson wasn't done. He turned sharply to the candidate who had humiliated her with cruel words earlier. "You," he said sternly. "What did you call her? A beggar teaching investment strategies?" The man's face turned ghostly pale. He stammered, unable to respond. Mr. Anderson's voice thundered, "Remember this, greatness does not wear designer suits. It wears scars, wisdom, and resilience. And that," he gestured at Amara, "is why she is your new chairwoman." Amara felt the strength rise inside her. She lifted her chin and addressed the room. "I didn't walk in here expecting this. I thought I was applying for a job. But perhaps life wanted me to learn one more lesson, that you must never let the laughter of others define your worth. Because today, I was humiliated. But tomorrow, I will lead." The room erupted, not in laughter this time, but in thunderous applause. Even those who had mocked her moments earlier stood, clapping awkwardly but sincerely, as though trying to erase their shame. Mr. Anderson bowed once more, a rare gesture from a man known for his pride. "Welcome, Madam Chairwoman," he said. Amara smiled, her tears finally spilling. She wasn't just